On Trunk Nation on Sirius XM 106 volume, talking rock with you Monday through Friday, live 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Remember, the show replays every night, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, and it's always on demand on the Sirius XM app. And this time, we are also on Facebook Live. I am joined by Joe Elliott of Def Leppard. Good to see you, Joe.
You too.
How are you, man? And I assume Neal Schon is going to sit in that chair any minute now.
He is there, but you just can't see him.
Wait, do we have a Neal Schon hologram? Is he getting lazy?
Yeah. Somebody turn it on.
You two have been making the rounds promoting the tour, huh?
It's been the Cheech and Chong show for the last 48 hours. It's been really funny, actually. Yeah.
You have history, obviously, because you toured together. Was it 06?
Yes, it was 12 years ago.
It's amazing that it was that long ago.
I know. The Beatles were together for 8. Put some perspective on it there, yeah. Now, we go back a long way. The first time we actually met was Lexington, Kentucky in 1983. We were on tour for the Pyromania tour, and it was a day off, and we were playing there the night after. And we got in, and they were playing that night. So Journey on at the same venue, and Bryan Adams was the opening act, and we went down there, and the promoter obviously let them know we were coming, and they were very gracious. Yeah, bring them in. So we just hung out in their dressing room before they went on, and it was fun.
Was Journey for you growing up? Because of course they predate Leppard a little bit and a little bit older, but in the UK, were Journey a big deal?
No, absolutely not. No,
they weren't.
No, they were not. No.
So when did they first come on your radar as a fan?
They came under my radar because
here he is. We're talking all kinds of stuff about you, Neal.
We're talking about you.
How you doing? Good to see you, man. Good to see you, man. How you been? Yeah, we've just been.
Your timing's impeccable. It's been a while. 20 minutes.
Way too long.
We were just talking about how you guys are like probably a comedy duo at this point after being together for promoting tour.
So yeah, I was aware of them because it's a little known fact, but in the UK we had the one station. It was BBC Radio 1, top 40 station, but they had a rock show. Either it was Alan Fluff Freeman or it was Tommy Vance had a 2-hour show Friday night, Saturday afternoon, and they would play things that you wouldn't hear during the day, like Journey or Allman Brothers, Pat Travis, kind of, that's about as a Grand Funk Railroad, maybe, very few American bands ever got played on English radio. But sometimes there'd be sampler albums come out from certain labels, and I remember the first thing I ever heard was Any Way You Want It, I think, was on a sampler record. And then he was in Caddyshack. And then,
which I just watched Caddyshack believe it or not, for like the first time, and I forgot all about that. And well,
so
Neal,
let's party.
A couple things. Neal, were you aware? Obviously, when they put that in the film, you were aware of it, right? They contact you about it?
I thought it was extremely goofy, but I loved Rodney Dangerfield, so I was okay with it because they sped it up. It's already a fast song, and they sped it up like quite a few numbers.
But what I was talking about with Joe before you walked in was in the UK when he was he's such a big music fan. He and I have talked about all these bands we love and so many times. But where Journey sat in the UK, like if there was a great awareness for him when he was a kid, and he said not really. So what did you guys get over there much back in the day?
Not much. We didn't, and we went over before Steve was in the band, and remember Gary Moore was a good friend of mine. He came and saw us, and he was like, "Wow, you guys sound insane! I love that." And we were hanging out, but we were much more progressive, as you know. And then, when Perry came into the band, we went over once, and we're playing small places.
Was it? Well, it wasn't that small. It's the Sheffield City Hall. It holds 2,200.
Okay, well that's small compared to what we were doing in the United States.
Just like
it's a nightclub.
So Steve was at the place where he was like, "Wow, we're like selling out stadiums in the United States. Why do I want to go over there and start like from the beginning again?" So I just we never went. We never went back.
I saw the one tour.
So you saw the first time they played?
I saw 1980. They came over with Pat Travis as the opening act.
Steve, you remember? I mean, Neal, do you remember?
I do remember the tour. Pat Travers sounded extremely good because, I thought he had a great band as it was.
He was.
But I had gotten him Pat Thrall.
You got Pat Thrall in Pat Travers. Wow.
See, I got Pat Thrall the gig I had known Pat, and I knew how good he was, and Pat was looking for a gig, and Pat Travers, I went to see him in the city in San Francisco, and he said, you know any guitar player? Man, I'm looking for a guitar player, a second guitar player. And I go, Pat Thrall is looking for a gig, man. He's totally badass. You should go for that.
Now, I don't want to get real geeky because the three of us could get real geeky, but the Hughes Thrall album is killer if people want to hear Pat Thrall.
Insane.
Yeah.
Go check that out. If
Insane.
people listening
I
have
love that
never
record.
heard Pat Thrall and didn't know of Roland Pat Travers, the Hughes Thrall
Pat
album
Thrall
is
was
killer.
when we toured, we opened for Pat Travers on our first ever American tour. First gig, actually, 20th of May, 1980 at Santa Monica Civic. And Pat Thrall's guitar sound sounded like 10 guitarists. Whatever he uses as a pedal board, you stood behind it and
It's
you're
his
like,
fingers, too.
oh, it was unbelievable.
Well, let's get up to the current speed, because if we start talking about things from 35 years ago, it's not going to serve what you guys are here to serve, which is a big tour that's been announced, Journey and Def Leppard going out together, and the dates are all announced out there. As we were saying before you came in, Neal, you guys did this once before. Hard to believe it was 06.
Yeah.
Which is, my gosh, I mean, who thought, this doesn't feel like that long ago. And how did it come back around that you guys thought now would be the time to revisit it? Yeah, Neal,
I don't know if Joe or anybody else knew in the band. I had heard nothing about it until management brought it up to me and said, this would be the killer tour. And I go, yeah, I think so too.
That's
I go,
how it always
we haven't
works.
done it in such a long time. And the first time was so great. And it was such a long time ago. I go, it's. I think, they've grown, we've grown. I think both of our audiences put together is massive.
And when in 06, who was singing for you? It wasn't Arnell, right?
It was Steve Algeri.
Okay, so Steve was in the band at the time.
Steve was in the band at the time. We had just gotten out on tour, from what I recall.
Yep.
And Steve's voice went out. Just like he went to open it and nothing came out. And I was like, oh, shit, this is not good news, And so he clearly at that point just had no voice, and I didn't think it was coming back anytime soon. So it was either pack up and go home or, make a change and try to get through the tour. And so, I was working with Jeff Scott Soto
Right,
at the
I
time.
thought Jeff came in at that point.
And, working on, an album. We were working on something together. And I go, I think maybe Jeff could pull this off, And he did come out. After I did a lot of fighting within the band, some guys were just not into it. And I went, well, you know what? It's either that or we're going home,
Right.
Because...
And as an outsider looking in, he did an unbelievable job, because I saw his first sound check, and of course you're thinking, God, I hope this is not going to be a train wreck. But that first gig, I remember it was a huge, big stadium thing, big open shed, and we were watching from the side because I didn't know Jeff at all at the time. It's like, wow, he pulled this off. He remembered the words. He didn't have. I don't think he even had autocue. I don't know how he did it, but
It's big shoes to fill, no matter who.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
obviously, the bulk of it is singing Steve, but I mean,
Yeah,
still,
of course, yeah.
I mean, whoever's coming in there, that's a tough spot. So the fact that he could hold the fort, you guys could get through that tour and make it work.
But it was a great tour.
And I wanted to check it out even further than that at that point. And so we did, after the tour, we went in the studio. We tried writing a couple tunes and putting Jeff on it. And when we listened back, honestly, I just didn't feel like it sounded remotely anything like the band.
Right.
You can have 10 different voices you can put in if they're the right cats and still sound like the band. Maybe everybody's going to have a personal preference and a choice of who they like best. And it's hard to beat Perry, honestly.
Yeah, of course. Joe, it's interesting for me when I think about Def Leppard, because you guys have toured consistently here in America, doing the outdoor amphitheaters now with a variety of different bands. And you've really worked incredibly hard to rebuild the Def Leppard and the brand of Def Leppard and remind everybody of the greatness of Def Leppard. I mean, you've consistently worked at it and gotten away from, Def Leppard to me was always so much bigger and meant so much more than some of the bands that you came from in that era and are sometimes associated with. And I think you've worked so hard to build beyond that a little bit. But in '06, on that first tour, were you still, what was the status of the band at that point? Were you still trying to kind of put your stamp in again?
Absolutely. I mean, you're always trying. I don't think you ever stop. But by 2006, it had started to turn around.
Yeah.
You know, the previous year, we did some like minor league baseball stadiums with Bryan Adams. And that really kind of, it was a cheaper ticket. And in fairness, it was supposed to be a co-headline. And after about the third gig, Brian turned around and he said, I can't do this. I don't want to follow you guys. So I'm just going to go on first. So it turned into basically, you know, the remaining 20, 30 shows or something, we headlined them. And there was a lot of people coming. And from that moment onwards, every time we went out on the road, 2008, we went out with 6 of Journey, 7, I think we went out with like Poison and Cheap Trick, which went into 8. And then there was like Styx and REO Speedwagon. And then in 11, we had Heart. You know, and we love to go out with another band that people know, but it kept us in that headline spot, and we were in amphitheaters, and we were starting to sell 15 to 18 to 20,000 tickets each time, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger each tour, and it comes out of fear. It comes out of fear of somebody saying, "You see who's playing the bowling alley down the street?"
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, you're looking at these bands. It might have been on MTV straight after Photograph, or straight, you know, just before Sugar went on, and it's like it's almost the same video, and you're like, it's almost the same band, but they're in bowling alleys, and you're like,
Yeah, no,
oh,
I
man.
see it all the time, and that's what I meant by having the work.
Can't go there.
The work you did to put in to build this, because only a handful of bands have been able to do
But
that.
in fairness, without blowing my own trumpet, we were, you know, we did sell, you know, 65, 70, 80 million records. It's now to 100 or something silly. And a lot of those bands were literally put together to sound like us. I mean, I've met them, and I've met A&R men that have said, you know, yeah, my job when I worked at such and such a label was like, I was told by the boss, go sign a band that sounds like Def Leppard. And there was 100 sound-alikes.
Oh yeah, of course. Neal, I talked with Joe about the first time that Journey came on his radar in the UK. When for you did Def Leppard first come on your radar?
We talked about this earlier. I mean, immediately, actually. They were
Like On Through the Night? Like immediately, first
I knew
album?
their first record, yeah.
So you knew Wasted and Hello America and all that stuff?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What, did somebody give it to you, or did you? How did you?
I heard it. I heard it on radio. I heard it on MTV. I went out and bought it, and I checked it out. And you know, I felt like we were very compatible even back then.
Yeah.
He likes bringing on the heartbreak. I mean, he goes back to 1981. You know,
The original version, not the remix.
Yeah.
Check out the verse, okay, and bring on the heartbreak. Listen to the chords, and then listen to Winds of March. My dad wrote those chords right in the beginning, and I go, wow, that's crazy that we both came with it pretty much at the same time.
Yeah.
It's the same, and then it's a little different.
I was
on
hanging out
both
with his
sides,
dad,
but-
see? I was hanging out with his dad.
Dad was a good writer.
Joe, you just touched on something a second ago because you were talking about touring with Bryan Adams and who was going to go on first and all that. How's this tour working? Did you guys flip a coin, or what's happening?
We're going to flip.
Yeah.
You're going to flip every day?
Yeah, we're going to flip-flop every day.
Yeah,
You're gonna
we're
flip-flop.
not going to
I thought you were
flip
gonna flip a coin every day.
That would screw the crew big time.
No, we're going to flip a coin once, and then we're going to flip-flop from there out.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you flip the coin to see who very first show who
There's
opened.
58 shows, which are possibly already 60, which may even extend. So we're looking at 50 arenas. You got LA Forums, Madison Square Gardens, 10 stadiums, and I say at the stadiums they will headline 5. We will headline 5, and in the arenas it'll be 25.
And the same set time.
Yeah.
Everybody's playing the
Absolutely.
same amount
I
of
think
time?
we're going to have plenty of time for both bands to play.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited because it's not a 3 bill.
Yeah.
So
usually
you're not going to add another band. It's
Only
not
in
going
the
to be.
stadiums because you can open them earlier.
Right.
But in the arenas, it's say if we're going to go on first, we'll go on at 7:30 and play till 9, and they'll go on at 9:30 and play till 11 or whatever it is. So an hour 40, hour 30, whatever we can squeeze in.
Then you bring up a good point about the venues, because when I first heard about this tour, I said, "Oh well, I'm sure it's going to be like Leppard has been doing, and it's going to be a shed tour and do the amphitheater." It's not. You're almost all indoors except for stadium dates, which is really a big
We've got
big step.
Fenway Park and Wrigley Field.
There's a bunch of them. I can't. I don't.
Yeah, they
it's
all
so
change
new.
names.
I
It's
don't
the
have them
AT&T
memorized.
this, or it's the Kentucky Fried Chicken there.
The 7-Eleven arena, I know.
Yeah.
But was that a conscious decision to bring these shows inside versus do the amphitheaters?
Listen, both bands are more than capable to just play the amphitheaters for the rest of our lives. We were doing 25,000, 26,000 people last summer in these amphitheaters, so we could have just done more of the same. But when it was put to us that you think about how we were in 2006, we were both doing okay. We were both very successful bands. We weren't in bowling alleys,
Right.
you know. And 12 years on, we're actually bigger than we were then because we've worked really hard. I don't think you stopped touring. We haven't stopped touring.
No.
And of
I
course,
haven't.
when the Suits get talking to each other and they said, look, you know, we have this great idea. It really worked 12 years ago. Let's get you guys back together, but put you in bigger places. And it's like, you know, it's just a logical kind of progression, really.
Neal's been touring since Santana, haven't you?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have you stopped ever?
Not really. You know, the only periods that I ever stopped were when, you know, Steve in the older band with Perry in it decided that he wanted to take a hiatus, you know. And he would say, I'm burnt out, you know, I need some time off. And, you know, I'm thinking, okay, we'll take 6 months off and get back to it. And 3 years later, it's like, we're still off. So I go, I get a call from John Waite. You want to come down to L.A. and jam and see what happens? And that became Bad English. And so I've always managed to find something. But yeah, I'm always touring.
And do you like it as much as you did when you were much younger?
I absolutely do.
You do?
I like it more, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Why so?
Well, it's obvious. It's, you know, we're traveling better.
You're not in bowling alleys.
I've been like, you know, completely sober for 10 years. And that's actually making me enjoy it more. You know, you don't get so run down from being so effed up all the time. And more on top of your game, you know. I feel like I'm playing better. I'm, you know, more alert about everything that's around me.
Right.
I'm not missing anything,
Right.
you know. Something about, you know, hanging out in the bar every night. You just don't, you're not really moving forward. You're kind of sitting in the same place. And so I don't miss it.
Joe, do you still like it? Do you still like being on the road?
I prefer it now to back then even.
Really?
Absolutely,
Just like
yeah.
Neal said, huh?
Yeah. I don't know whether it's out of some kind of acceptance of the fact that at the age of 58, you just don't know when your last gig's going to be,
Right.
you know. I think when it becomes more valuable the older you get, when you're 26, 27, you think it's going to go on forever. Now, we're fortunate for us that so far, touch wood, it has. But for many people that were, you know, like we were during the Hysteria tour or whatever, it could have come to a crashing halt, especially after grunge. But we worked really hard to try and just plow our way through it. And the appreciation of all the people that stuck with us, that kept coming, you know, and stuck with, and they're still coming and what have you. You go on stage and you realize what a blessing it is to be in this position. I've never been one of these people that's blasé that just goes like, oh, whatever. You know, for me, it's like you get on stage, you're hanging around behind the curtain, you listen to the last song before you go on, and you've got your little routine, and normally it's me and Phil in one little tent, and Vivian and Sav over there, and Rick Allen's pacing up and down in between. And we follow AC/DC for the last 5 years or whatever. And then there's little tears in the curtain, and you're peering through, and you're going, Phil, check it out, look, it's packed all the way to the back. And then the house lights go down, and the noise goes up. And you're thinking, you know, wow, all we have to do now is not screw up. And this is going to be a perfect day, you know. And we seem to have quite a lot of them, you know. They don't even have to be perfect. They just have to be good, you know.
See, I think I think that's really refreshing for fans to hear, because I think people would think with all the shows you guys have done over all the decades, it almost, as cool to the fan, it's the coolest thing in the world. It's like, oh my God, imagine being Joe Elliott or Neal Schon. Oh my God. But there's a side, and me being in the business for so long, that you'd say, oh man, what city am I in tonight? You know, put it on the monitor so I don't say I'm in Cleveland when I'm in Chicago.
we
with
do
that
that
always happens,
We
yeah.
always
but
do
still,
that.
it becomes a bit of like almost on autopilot. But you're saying you really can still take that moment
the
in.
The day can be autopilot to a point. You know, the meal at 4 o'clock, the getting there, the showering and the shaving and the what am I
Meet
going
and
to wear
greet
today?
interview, yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. All that stuff can. But it's the bit that you live for is the performance.
So you still get the
it
juice.
never gets old.
Yeah, that is the high. That's the ultimate high. The electricity between the audience and myself while I'm playing, that is it.
Well, then there's the old adage that most artists have told me. It's like we get paid for the other 22 hours in the day. The 2 hours that we're playing, that we're on stage, that's the reward. That's the cherry.
Yeah, we do that for free. We get paid for the other bits.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Do we have to go to break? Okay, yeah, we have to go to break. All right, well, let's hit a break. We're going to be back with more with Neal Schon, of course, of Journey, and Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, who are joining me here on Trunk Nation as we're talking about the big tour. Is there a central website, or just go to the individual websites for people to see all the dates, right? Or is there a hub?
LiveNation.com would be the neutral.
Okay.
Then there's defleppard.com, and I'm guessing it's journey.com.
Is it?
Ours is pretty much non-existent, but you can follow me and I'll let you know what's going on.
And I do. And by the way, Neal's great to follow on Twitter as well, which is Neal Schon Music, which I do. So Neal's active on Twitter and always pumps out great stuff. Joe hasn't gone down the Twitter road yet. You're staying away, right?
No, we collectively twit or twat.
At Def Leppard.
But I do not individually twat.
Okay, so you can follow Neal at Neal Schon Music and follow Joe's collective at Def Leppard if you are into the Twitter world like I am as well. We'll hit a break. We'll come back. Much more to get to, and we also have we're streaming live on Facebook as well. So speaking of social media, so we have some questions from that audience we're going to work into the conversation. Get your tickets. It's going to be a massive tour. I personally am really glad that it's inside because I always love shows with a roof. I just
10 of them aren't. 10 of them are in massive big stadiums with no roof.
But that's cool too. That's a little different. But we're going to talk more about the tour, more about what these guys have going on. We'll work your questions into the conversation as well. Coming right back after this. Real quick here, coming back, because I was just talking to Joe off the air about a band I've been meaning to ask him about forever, because he and I talk about the old 70s stuff we love. But I saw the Struts for the first time recently, and they floored me. And you've given them your endorsement, I know.
For the last 2 years since I first heard them. To anybody that's not heard them, imagine if you're old enough to remember who Slade are. They kind of like got that power pop of Slade, but the singer Luke sounds exactly like Freddie Mercury, and he knows it. So I'm not doing him a disservice. He wears Xander Rhodes clothing. He's total rock star. He's an absolute rock star.
But great songs.
Guy wears mascara in the shower. You know what I mean? He's a total rock star, and them songs are stupendous.
I knew
Absolutely
you and I
brilliant.
would be on the same page on this. I've been meaning to talk to him. Neal, do you keep up with the newer, younger bands? Do you see guys out there you like that you get excited about?
You know what? I have to be honest. I really don't, because my head. I can play so many different types of music. To be honest, and I'm like, I can go into any mode at any point. But when I'm at home, I'm listening to a lot of jazz.
Oh, really?
And I'm like sort of jazzing out these days when I'm playing by myself with loops. Miles Davis, picture, Bitches Brew. Plus, it's out there, but you're in the jungle, baby. It's like.
Do you want to make jazz records? Would you like to do that?
I don't really want to make jazz records. I just want to play them.
Because you've done your own records and you've done some eclectic stuff over time. But would you wouldn't have it in you to go after a full on jazz thing just for fun?
I don't think so.
No. You just like hearing it.
I would just rather go not do a tour, but find a place. If I like to play with 3 guys or 4 guys that I put together, find a place that I can go that's very small and just have a good time and open it up. It's like my favorite stuff is like Miles Davis years ago, when he had
Kind of Blue.
Well, yeah, but all the really more out there stuff when he played the festivals. And there's a saying that he had, somebody asked him, there was like a 23-minute performance that I saw, and it was amazing. And someone said, what do you call that afterwards? And he goes, call it whatever the fuck you want.
Brilliant.
There's something cool about that to me.
Wasn't he the guy that coined the phrase, there's only 2 types of music, good and bad?
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I mean?
Pretty much sums it up.
But yeah, that's my birth. I call it my birth year album. Came out in 1959, Kind of Blue by Miles Davis.
You a jazz guy as well?
I love that record. I wouldn't say I'm totally into jazz. I like some jazz. Sometimes it can be a little too indulgent. But that album is just...
That's because I play. So.
Yeah.
Singers hate it, usually. But I love rock and roll. I love any kind of good rock and roll. I just don't listen to and buy a lot of new records. Right. All the old rock that I love is very, it's the stuff that everybody learned from.
Right, right. I should ask you, Neal, before we go any further, because I wanted you to address this a little bit. The last year or so since the last Journey tour, you've been, and we talked about social media, you've been very open and transparent about stuff going on within the context of your band and the dynamics of it and what was going on amongst the members and yourself. Can you address where that's at now?
Well, it's pretty much, as far as I know, it's in the same place, and I'm ready to keep on addressing things as I
it sounds like this could be a real interesting tour, Joe.
It's good. No, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's been, sort of the same for a while. Okay, I would say like the last 2 years, and so I just I put my head in my own space, and I'm really there to play live for our fans. It's about the music and it's about the fans. It's not about anything else that's going on inside, And people go through changes, man. Everybody, they it was one way and now it's like this, and you're going, well, what happened? We agreed on this and that, and then it goes in a different direction and nobody tells you about it. And I'm like, that's kind of bizarre to me. But at the same token, it's rock and roll. So, we are definitely going to bring it, though. I know, because it has nothing to do with the way that we play.
So you guys you're confident that you can. I'm assuming you rehearse. I mean, I know you played so much, but you're confident that you'll be able to all come together, rehearse, do these shows. And listen, there's no secret. There's a lot of bands, way more than people listening would ever know, that actually don't all get along that well, and they come together for that hour and a half on stage. Outside, that's not so much. So you're confident that you'll be able to get through this tour and no issues.
We get along perfectly musically most of the time. It was like a lot of different changes in the outside thing in people's personal lives that, I just, I'm somewhere else.
Right.
So, yeah, it's going to be fine.
Okay. And last thing on this, I thought it was really cool and pretty refreshing that you were so open and honest about your thoughts on social media about it. A lot of bands sometimes tend to suppress that and keep it very secretive. Why did you decide to talk so openly about what was going on?
I have a lot of faith in the fans, and I wasn't getting a lot of help anywhere else. That's all I can tell you. I mean, I was trying to get management at the point to step in and bring some things about. I was trying to talk to different members, and they all went this way, and I was kind of there by myself. And so I went, man, I'm going to open this up. I got frustrated with it. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to talk to the fans themselves, and I'm going to get their opinion. And so now they've spoken, and I feel really good about what I'm doing. I feel like I got, 99.9% fans are understanding where I'm at. And so it's a good thing.
And everybody's on board from the last lineup for this tour. Is Steve playing drums as well?
Smith is on drums, yes.
Okay, so you got everybody is on the lineup.
Arnell,
that people.
Smith, Ross, and Jonathan, yes.
Okay, so that's the last band that toured.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, was there ever any point in Def Leppard's history where there was some sort of inner conflict amongst you guys that you kind of dealt with through tours or through periods?
Oh, yeah.
There was?
Plenty of it.
That's why you're not on Twitter, right?
Yeah, that's just absolutely right. It's also why Pete Willis is not in the band anymore.
Oh, okay.
That was the only major kind of contention of any negativity that we've really had to deal with. He just became unworkable. I don't want to trash Pete. It's not fair on him. His family, his kids are grown up, but he had to go. He just had to go. And musically, the band improved so much more when Phil joined anyway. Not that Pete was a bad musician, don't get me wrong. He was a phenomenal guitar player. But Phil came in with all the right ingredients. He looked good, he played well, he sang, he wrote songs that were more fit into the way that we wanted to go. He was totally on board. When he joined on Pyromania, he hadn't written any of it, but he totally got it. And he's like, this is the kind of band I want to be in, And when we came to doing Hysteria, which was the first record he contributed writing for, that was the direction that we were trying to get to all our career at that point, Mm-hmm. Since then, that, up until with Steve, we had lots of problems with Steve, and sadly we just couldn't, we did everything in our power. I feel we did everything in our power to help him as best we could, but with somebody who's got essentially a death wish as much as he had, there's nothing you can do. You can't force people into rehab. We did, and when you force somebody into rehab, they walk out.
Right.
They've got to walk in. They have to walk in, and that sadly never happened with Steve. And we gave him like the 6 months leave of absence. I think it was about September-ish of 1990. We were trying to write Adrenalize, and we were getting nowhere. Yeah. And we said, look, dude, I get it. Go home. He had a place in Chelsea in London that he'd barely ever slept in. Go home, take your clothes out of a wardrobe, cook your own meals, put the suitcase up in the attic. Just live your life. And let's see how we are in 6 months. But sadly, he passed away 4 months into that 6 months off sort of thing. So we'd been working as a four-piece right up to Steve dying, and we carried on working as a four-piece right up to finishing the Adrenalize album. Mm-hmm. Just out of respect to him, out of the fact that it's we think it's a little crass to just replace the dead guy straight away. Right. It's like, so it was a lot of pressure on Phil to be two people, if you like, but we pulled it off. And then we started thinking about who the hell we're going to get, And Vivian became the lead guy, and he was more than willing to join because at that time he wanted to be in a band that sang. He was so into his voice and all that kind of stuff, and he liked the songs. He'd been a fan since the EP, so it was a no-brainer. I know a lot of Dio fans think he's wasted in Def Leppard, but it does. Just because he doesn't play widdly for 2 hours doesn't mean he's not a valid member of the band. Because a lot of the stuff that we do, just because it's simplistic, doesn't mean that it's not challenging.
And now he's got last in line.
And he's got last in line. And you look at a song like Wild Thing, it was good enough for Hendrix to play. There's only 3 chords, you know what I mean? It's like, doesn't matter. And so this lineup has now been together 26 years next month.
Yeah.
And we've been very supportive of each other. We've had fist fights, we've had arguments, we've had stuff thrown at each other. I mean,
Neal's laughing. Been there, done that.
Yeah, most of the time. And it's never about music. It's either where's the TV remote, whatever, or an ex-girlfriend or some nonsense.
Yeah.
But when you think about when Rick lost his arm, we stuck by him. When Vivian had his cancer, which he's still living with, we stuck by him. We had to occasionally pull in Steve Brown to stand in for him while he was off having treatment, but that because he understood just as well as we did that the show must go on.
Yeah.
It's the old adage that's been on, been part of our lives since circuses in the Victorian days. The show must go on. But we're all here, and we're all, there's a lot of love and respect. And I think for us, it's the one slight difference I'd suggest between ourselves and Journey is like, we didn't really get together to be musicians. We just got together to be a gang. And it just happened to be music. Could have been football, could have been soccer, could have been anything, It's about the gang. It's about the team. If one of us is a little down, the other 4 pull the weight, and we don't get too wound up about things anymore.
We got one band recently in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Journey. One band that absolutely should be in, and I think it's ridiculous that has not been considered yet.
Agree.
And that's
Is
Def
that the
Leppard.
Beatles?
And I'm going to predict right now.
It'll
that
happen.
after this tour.
It'll happen.
It's going to happen.
Especially now that they put Bon Jovi in this year. They put you guys in. It's only Def Leppard, Foreigner. There's so many that I feel should be there. And I'm a voter, and I'm always pushing. But
we appreciate that.
And the fans, of course, everybody.
But as has been well documented for the last 5 years, I've spent 5 years ripping a new asshole.
Well, I've spent 30 years 25 years ripping them, and they made me a voter. So there's progress. But
so, my opinion on the whole thing softens a little bit when I hear that there's like people that appreciate this form of music. Because 10 years ago, whether it be you guys or us or Bon Jovi or Motley Crue or whoever, it's like, ugh, we don't want that kind of person in here. We want Springsteen, U2, Mellencamp, Tom Petty, Loudon Wainwright, Lou Reed. They want the cool...
right.
Patti Smith. They didn't want us. Christ, if Lynyrd Skynyrd, Mom's apple pie, as you guys would say, they are America to me as an English kid. They're like like Creedence Clearwater Revival were. They were like rejected like 7 times or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Oh, well,
which is why I fought. I said, look, is my career going to improve? Are my ticket sales going up? My record sales going up?
Of course
is
not.
my life going to be any better if I'm in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? No, it's not. So I don't care.
Of course. Well, the
But I'm
rejection...
having breakfast with somebody tomorrow that's from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we'll see how that
Grease the
works
wheel
out.
a little bit. Well, the rejection letter they sent to Judas Priest this year said, well, remember we passed over Sabbath 9 years in a row. I'm like, that's all you need to know. They passed over Sabbath 9 years in a row. But Neal, I want to ask you real quick, going back to the Hall of Fame, the experience for you, and can you say definitively what happened with Steve, and did you know... How long in advance did you know he was going to show up, and how long did you know for a fact he would not sing? Did he tell you why he would not sing? Looking back on it, is there any more information you have about that night you can share?
All I can tell you is what I knew. And the day of the show, I found out that he was showing. Okay?
Day of the show.
The day of the induction. And I found out that he was going to show. And I found out also that he did not want to perform. Okay.
Did they give you a reason why, or just not comfortable?
When I saw him, and we hadn't seen each other in so many years, and we had a great conversation backstage before we got on stage, and it didn't even really come about. I felt like let's just talk as friends. You know, we haven't been.
You could see you guys were just lit up when you saw each other too. You know, there was clearly there was a connection.
There was a bond, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, but it was a non-starter. The idea of him getting up and even trading off with Arnell.
I tried to promote it.
Yeah.
You saw, I was like,
Well, that's
I
the
hope
other
he
thing
does
on
it.
social media. People are pounding Neal, and I'm like, Neal wants it to happen. Like, you can't get water from a stone.
I made it very clear that I thought it would be like very so cool for him to do.
Have
that.
you been in touch with him since?
I have not.
So nobody's heard anything from him since that night.
Nope.
And it's his birthday today, I believe.
Yeah, it is his birthday.
So happy birthday, Steve Perry,
Yeah,
today.
Happy birthday, Steve.
It is. Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm getting the sign we have to break, and I know I've been yapping, and I've got the questions from the Facebook audience. So right after the break, we'll get to those. More with Neal Schon of course, Journey, Joe Elliott of Def Leppard. They are touring together. The first date is
21st of May.
And wherever it is, go to defleppard.com or journeymusic.com or the Live Nation site, which is livenation.com. Find a date near you, get your tickets. A tremendous, as they say, loaded with all the hits, and maybe get people like me get on you pushing for some deep cuts
Yeah,
too.
of course. All the hits and more.
Me too.
Hey, yeah, you guys are sick of playing. Joe's sick of singing Photograph. Just
No, I am not.
bring Walls Come Tumbling Down or something instead. You know,
Yeah.
let chase the whole audience
For
out
the
of there.
one guy in the stadium that
That's me.
cares.
All right, Wasted, please. All right, we'll be right back with more. Trunk, joined by Joe Elliott of Def Leppard, Neal Schon of Journey. Again, they are touring together, as you probably heard. Get your tickets now. Go to livenation.com for more information. We should clear this up because I did have some people ask me about this, Joe, and we should get this out. We were talking about it during the break. Just for clarity purposes, this tour you're doing with Journey, this is not Hysteria start to finish.
No, it is not. No, this is just going to be whatever set we choose, which we haven't even thought about yet. We're doing 11 shows in the UK and Ireland in December, where we're playing Hysteria and more.
Okay.
And it may, you never know. Once we've done that, because we did it in Vegas 5 years ago, so it's actually had its, we've done 12 shows, as it were, in the US. Now we're going to do 11 in the UK. So that's a kind of, a balance. But once you do that and word gets out, people start knocking on the door going, well, why don't you come and do it in Argentina and Japan or whatever? So we don't know where it's going to go.
And we should mention real quick, we didn't, before we run out of time, also in Def Leppard news made the other day, for those who've been asking forever about your catalog being on streaming, it's now available for people to consume from going back to the EP.
We finally did it.
Yeah.
We finally dropped the bomb, man. We everything from 1979 Def Leppard EP all the way up to the last album, all under the one umbrella.
And Rick Allen was here on my show just a few days ago, and the questions were coming at him about the streaming, and now he couldn't say it yet, but now it's finally done.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant because now we're on, every Spotify, Deezer, Amazon. I mean, everyone you can think of. We didn't want to do any exclusives. Everything, just get it out there.
Neal, for Journey's music, it's available everywhere. Are you cool with the whole streaming model? Do you think it's? I mean, I'm still a guy that loves the physical holding music. I still love my CDs. Honestly, the best format for me. But are you okay with what's going on now in that world?
I'm okay in the fact that people can get it so easily, but I'm really not okay with laws still. I think that they need. I know that they're working on them because we have attorneys that are working on them, and I've seen where they're going with it. And what is happening is, like, labels are doing really extremely well again, where they were going out of business before
Because of streaming?
Yes.
Yeah. But
Except
you
they're
guys
doing
aren't
well
seeing
off
it so
our
much.
money, and so they've got these big paths of $3 million offices, and it's back to signing a bunch of bands and having money to mess around with like that. But the streaming money, we've got like one of the biggest songs ever in the history, ever known to mankind, and it's in the top 10 of all those songs, and we get paid, but
Not
it's
what it
very
should
minute
be.
and minuscule amount, I think.
Let's get to the Facebook questions before we run out of time. This is Melissa R., who's watching now on Facebook Live. A question for Joe. What do you think is the key to the band's longevity? You are still amazing, she says.
Oh, thank you. Be forgiving. I think with us, it's like friendship. It's friendship first. It always has been. We allow each other, we indulge each other like a bad mood once a month. And then after that, you might get reprimanded for it. But most of the time, it just takes care of itself. I think as long as you, I don't know, maybe it's our expectations were never that high and we just surpassed them all. But we
Set
just
the bar low.
Yeah, set the bar as low as you can and see where you go, limbo. But we got, we just, I don't know. If I knew what the X factor was that keeps the band together, I'd bottle it and sell it, to be quite honest.
Did you ever envision this question for both of you, actually? Because, I mean, Journey's and Neal's been doing it even way longer. Did you ever envision when you started out that you could have a career this long in the music industry, that in 2018 you'd be sitting here talking about a tour, a massive tour like this?
I only always looked at it as music. That it was something that I loved since I started playing. And, since I got my first professional gig, which is at 15. So to me, it was never, I didn't have a goal in mind, like I need to be this person and I need to accomplish this and I need to have this much money or whatever. It was all about the music. It's still about the music and my love for the music and my love for the audience, the fans that have been, made it possible for us to have this longevity. They are the ones that you're thankful for. And I'm completely grateful for that because I have no clue what I'd be doing if I couldn't play and do what I love doing.
This is from Corinne S., and she says, will the set lists on this tour feature any songs we've never heard live, and will you be switching any songs out from past year's set lists? So I guess she's trying to, that's the age-old battle, because you need to play the hits for the masses, but you've always got people like Corinne and myself, and I'm sure even you guys would love to pull out a deep track here and there. So that balance, how do you find it? What's your approach to that? We'll start with Neal.
Well, we haven't talked about it either yet. We will eventually and get into rehearsal, and we'll see what happens. I think that the tour is going to be a very special tour. I don't want to repeat ourselves and do the same thing we've done for the last 6 decades. And so,
but you've got that problem, and it's a great problem to have, and both of you do, where you've got a dozen solid hits. You've got people, the masses will go crazy if you don't play, so you've got to figure out that balance.
We will figure it out, but you figure out ways to spice it up in between. And we have so many great songs that we never touch upon, and I've got some ideas I'm working on, to embellish little bits and pieces of it and construct it in a way, not to where it's like some kind of funky Vegas thing where, it's so worked out that it seems cheesy.
Right.
But there's a lot of cool musical bits, and I believe that you can use them to get in and out of other songs.
Joe, what's your approach with Leppard for that?
We've always had this approach that we will not play to the minority, because if you stood in my shoes, neither would you. And I have that luxurious position to be able to say, yeah, but don't stand in my shoes. I do. And I know what it's like. We've succumbed, and we've opened a show with a non-album B-side, because we think, it's going to go down great with the internet. But it doesn't go down well with the crowd. So the kid at home who never sees you anyway, that's just comparing set lists, he's got a hard on. But everybody else in the crowd has got their arms folded going, what the hell is this? Right. So it's a real hard, but again, that song maybe works if you play 12th out of 20 songs. There's a spot for everything. If you set, it's like when you put an album together, the running order can make or break a record, and the running order can make or break a set. And we have, the way we discuss it is we have A, B, and C lists. And the A lists are the ones that if you don't play them, you won't get out of the building alive. The B list is the kind of cool album tracky stuff like Switch 625 maybe, or Too Late for Love, or whatever. And then the C list is the songs that can come and go that don't affect the A and the B list, which is new songs, rare songs, and there can only be maybe 2 or 3 of those. And if you've got the energy to change them out all the time, you come up with another problem then, because let's say you play Fenway Park and you play Wasted, but you go to Madison Square Gardens and you don't play Wasted. The people in Madison Square Gardens have a fit, and the ones that you played Wasted say, well, what did you play that instead of? And if it was Too Late for Love, they go, I would rather have heard Too Late for Love. So if you pander to an audience, you're never going to win. So you have to play to yourself.
Right.
So we're always going to pick what we think is the right thing to do. And we are very proud of having hit singles.
Oh, sure. Why
you know
wouldn't
what I mean?
you be?
It's like, come on. It's like, this is what you dream of as a kid. So why would we abandon them?
Well, when you think of Def Leppard and Journey, I mean, again, if you're a deep fan into this stuff like I am, well, you think about the full albums. But to the masses, you think about the hits. You think about hearing Photograph and Pour Some Sugar on Me, and of course, Don't Stop Believing, and Stone in Love, or what. That's what comes to mind. So it only makes sense. Tying into that a little bit, this is a great question here. This is from Paul E. And he says, Joe, what's your favorite Journey song and why? And Neal, what's your favorite Def Leppard song and why? So Neal, you want to take that one first?
Okay, we'll start now with the first record. I loved Heartbreak. We already talked about that. They have so many good songs. Photograph, Pour Some Sugar on Me. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I could give you a list, that keeps going. But I would say those songs, they're a little bit different from one another, but very strong. They're always like stuck in my head.
Joe, you got a favorite Journey song?
I've got many, actually. I really, really dig Wheel in the Sky. I think it's a great song. Loving, Touching, Squeezing is a great song. But my favourite by a country mile is Chain Reaction.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's getting a
And
little deep.
I've been beating him up for 2 days now. Play the bloody thing.
Because he said that to us 12 years ago. It was in our set. I said, guys, he wants us to play that. Can we please?
Just do it in sound check,
We
you know?
could go forever here. Unfortunately, that means we're out of time here. Please, I don't need to tell you, but everybody's going to, any rock fan in the world is going to go to this tour. Again, Journey and Def Leppard, hitting the road. Go to livenation.com right now for your dates and your tickets. Guys, have a great tour. It's great to see you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Cheers, buddy.
all the decades of great music and continued success to both of you. Trunk Nation on volume, and we'll see you guys again live tomorrow starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.